Hi everyone. Firstly, we would like to say thank you for using this annual budget tool. We really appreciate your support. In this video, we are going to be diving into the different features and options of this budget. Firstly, we are going to be looking at the monthly and annual budgeting tool, which enables you to keep track of your income and expenses, and which gives you a large set of options so that you can choose how you budget. Secondly, we will look at the calendar tool, which gives you a time-based view of all your time-based payments. For example, your income, recurring expenses, and debts can all be visualized here. And finally, we will look at the debt payoff tracker, which will allow you to get a detailed plan on how to pay off your debts in the most effective way. By the end of the video, we hope that you will have a comprehensive understanding of how to use our budget to manage your finances, and we trust that you will have found it to be easy and intuitive to use. Okay, so getting started. So when you open this spreadsheet, you will find yourself on this README page. And there are a few key components that I would like to go over while we are here. Firstly, at the top of the page, you will see the navigation bar, and this allows you to easily and conveniently navigate to the different sections of the spreadsheet. You will see all the links to the sections at the top, and when you click on one, it will take you to that section. You will also see that the navigation bar is dynamic, which means that, depending on where you are, you have different options available to you. To get back to the README page, you can click Get Started. Underneath that, you have the quick guides to all the different tools in the spreadsheet. So you have a quick guide to the annual, monthly, and budget tool, another one for the calendar, and another one for the debt tracker. These are designed to be easy to digest and to provide a quick reference should you have any questions about the features of these tools. Moving back to the top of the page, you will see a box on the right here with a clickable checkbox inside of it. The purpose of this checkbox is to allow you to initialize the various formulas inside the spreadsheet as you open it. If you do mark the checkbox, you will likely see a blue loading bar appear in the top right corner. This loading bar will probably take about 10 seconds to complete, and we recommend you wait until it is finished. That being said, please note that clicking this checkbox is completely optional. The spreadsheet will still work in exactly the same way. However, this can help reduce any future loading of the features as you use the budget. Lastly, I would also like to point out the option to collapse the toolbar in Google Sheets itself. By just clicking this button in the top right corner here, you can create more real estate on your screen while you do your budgeting. Now that we have gone over the initial features of the spreadsheet, let's get started with the budgeting tools themselves. You begin budgeting in the Categories tab. In this tab, you can define the way in which you want to organize your budget. As you can see, there are 5 main categories: income, variable expenses, fixed expenses, assets, and debt. In income, you would define items related to the money that you are bringing in each month. This could be your salary or your partner's salary or something like a side hustle or even passive income. Then variable expenses are expenses that you budget for but that are difficult to predict each month. An example could be your groceries. Although you could estimate how much you are going to spend, it is hard to know exactly. On the other hand, fixed expenses are those expenses that are recurring for each month. Examples of this may be subscriptions such as Netflix, your rent, or your Wi-Fi payments. Anything that occurs each month and that is predictable can be logged under this category. Assets refers to your capacity to build up money, and items in this category could be either savings or investments. For example, maybe you have invested money in the stock market or are saving up for a future education. Then you would input those items here. Finally, there is a debt category, and, as in the name, this is where you would define the debt payments that you would make every month. Let's pause here and input a couple of items for each category. Then, you will see that once you have added items in this tab, the whole spreadsheet will automatically update based on your inputs. So, if you go to the first month, you will see that the items have now been populated. And the same is true for the second month and on. And in this way, consistency will be maintained across the spreadsheet. Once you have defined your category items, you can begin inputting your budget amounts. Starting with income, let's say that you receive $5,000 a month for your salary. Your partner receives $4,700 a month, and you budget an additional $1,200 for freelancing. After you have input your information, you will see that the analytics on the right-hand side will update. And there is a variety of analytics for each category. For example, you can see the progress you have made towards your budgeted amounts. You can see which income is the highest and lowest. You can look at a breakdown of your different income categories by share, and you can also view your remaining income for this month. Now, the value of knowing your remaining income is that it allows you to do zero-based budgeting. As you allocate amounts to your expenses, your assets, and your debt, you will see how much income you will have left over for that month. And so, in this way, you can make sure that each dollar has its own job. In addition to that, I would also like to mention that the graphs are dynamic, so you can choose what information to display. For example, you can show your actual amounts versus your budget, or you can reorder information based on your preference. Now, while the budget amounts are input directly into the monthly tabs, I would also like to indicate how we input actual activity. If we scroll down to the variable expenses table, we will see that the envelopes have been populated, and so we can immediately add our budgeted amounts. So for groceries, let's budget $800, for dining out $150, and for entertainment, we can budget $200. Now, with our budget set, we can begin to add actual amounts. And you would do this by adding transactions. In order to add transactions, we first need to navigate to the Transactions tab, either by clicking one of these links or by using the link in the left of the navigation bar. Then, once you are in this tab, you will see that you have space for over 1,000 transactions that enable you to keep a granular track of all your information for each month. Let's add a couple of transactions now. Then, once you have logged your information, you will see that it will begin to reflect in the monthly tabs. If we navigate to the January tab, we can now see actual amounts for each category item. And now, we can understand what our expenses look like for this month. Lastly, I would like to navigate back to the Transactions tab to show one final feature. It is important to note that, in this tab, you are able to sort and filter your transactions using the links in the log itself. In this way, you can organize your information based on how you want to view it and update it. Now, that covers everything related to setting up these tabs. However, I would also like to go over the additional options you have to customize your budget. The first feature I would like to cover is the date cycle. To change the budget date cycle, one must first go to the Categories tab. Here you can choose a starting year and a starting month. Based on these options, you will see that the budget tabs will change to reflect your updated settings. As we can see, the months in the navigation bar will update, and if you go to a monthly tab, it will also change the budgeting period. Then, in addition to changing the start year and month, it is also possible to update the day cycle. This will allow you to control the days of the month over which you want to budget. For example, let's say you get your paycheck on the 15th of every month, then you can change this setting to reflect that, and it will update across the spreadsheet. So in January, this will be the period of capture, in February this will also be the period of capture, and so on. And this will flow across all months, including to the annual report. The value of this is that, using these date settings, you are able to budget according to your personal flow of income. And I'm going to move on to the second setting available to you to enhance your budgeting, the income rollover feature. The income rollover feature allows you to create continuity between your budget tabs. For example, if we go to the February tab, we will see the option in the cash flow table to switch on income rollover. When you activate this setting, then we will see that any remaining income from January will roll over to February and populate in the cash flow table. In addition, the rollover setting will be indicated to be active in all the category tables. For example, you can see in the income table that rollover is active as well as in the expense table and so on. It is also important to note that when rollover is active, your remaining income for this month will be a combination of your budgeted income and the rollover income that you have set. You will notice that if I add more budgeted income, it will be combined with my rollover and it will be reflected here. Lastly, I will also mention that the first budgeting tab requires you to input your rollover manually. If we navigate to January, we will see that we have the option to input rollover amounts in the first row of the cash flow table. If at the start of your budget period you want to note some custom rollover, then you can input this amount over here and it will be accounted for in the budget. And that covers everything to do with the rollover feature. The final feature that I would like to discuss is the notifications in the top right. However, I will come back to this feature when we are discussing the calendar tool. For now, I am going to first discuss the annual report. In the annual report tab, you are able to see the detailed yearly review of all your finances. So for example, how much income did you earn in the year? What were your expenses and savings, etc.? You can view your yearly breakdown from a month-to-month basis and from an individual category basis. For example, you can see a breakdown of your yearly expenses by share, as well as get a view of your expenses for each month in the year. Then finally, there is a granular table showing the breakdown of your monthly spending for all the different categories, both in terms of your budgeted amounts and in terms of actual activity. It is also important to note that if I go and change the date cycle of the budget, then this will also reflect in the annual report. This enables you to do 12 months of continuous budgeting no matter what starting date you choose. And that brings me to the end of what I wanted to discuss in the annual report tab. I am now going to move to the calendar tab and demonstrate how it relates to the budget more broadly. The calendar tool allows you to track your recurring payments, which in this spreadsheet are your incomes, fixed expenses, and debts. As you can see, the calendar items are directly linked to the categories that you defined earlier, ensuring that consistency is maintained across the spreadsheet. Then, in addition to these categories, we have also provided an additional table in which you can track extra items that you would like to include in a time-based view. In order to add items to the calendar, you need to set the starting date, the name of the item, the relevant amount, and the period over which you want the payment to occur. The purpose of the period setting is that it allows you to easily add recurring payments. For example, if you receive your income bi-weekly, you can simply set the period to that option, and these items will reflect on the calendar in a bi-weekly fashion. You are able to filter the calendar by changing the month and the year at the top, and then you will see that the days and items on the calendar will update to reflect the new month and year settings. Now, in addition to the calendar view, you also have a list view of all your calendar items. Let's navigate there now. As you can see, there are 4 tables in this tab, one for incomes, one for fixed expenses, one for debts, and one for the extra items that you may want to include in your calendar. These items will display in chronological order. Furthermore, although these items are derived by what you have input in the calendar tables, you are also able to edit either the date or the amount columns if you want to customize the calendar items further. For example, we see here that our salary came through on the 15th of January and 2 weeks later on the 29th of January. If on the 2nd we did not make $2,500, then we can change this generated amount to a different actual amount. So even though you have set your salary of $2,500 to appear bi-weekly, you are actually able to change this item on an individual basis in this table. And if you do update it, then it will also reflect on the calendar itself. Please note that if you want to reset your calendar items to the initial values, then you can simply go to the item list, find a cell above or below that contains a formula, and then drag upwards or downwards from that cell. This will restore the calendar items to their original values. Another tip that is worth pointing out is that if you want to, you can also hide empty rows in your calendar list. This may make the list easier to work with. To do this, you can simply click the rows you want to hide, and then, once they are highlighted, you can right-click and select the setting Hide Rows. Then, if you want to unhide these rows again, you can follow a similar process by highlighting the rows, right-clicking and then choosing Unhide Rows. It is important to note that hiding and unhiding rows will not have any impact on the data. Finally, I would like to mention that your calendar items are also linked to your transactions. If we look at the list of items, you will be able to see that each item has a paid option next to them. If you go to your transactions log and have a transaction for that item on that particular date, then the calendar will update to reflect that transaction. For example, let's go to the transactions log. We see that we have logged a transaction for our salary on the 15th of January. This transaction will result in this particular calendar item having a paid status. If we navigate back to the calendar, we can see that this item is indicated to be paid in both the list view of the calendar as well as the calendar itself. By having the calendar linked to the transactions, you are able to use the calendar in conjunction with your budget. Please note that, of course, you don't have to use the calendar this way, but based on user feedback, we have designed it so that the calendar can be linked as closely as you want to your budgeting. And this actually brings us to the last feature we would like to mention for the budget tabs. If you navigate back to one of the budgets, you will see a table in the top right, which shows your pending payments. This table is based on your calendar items, and you can filter what is displayed based on the date that you want. Furthermore, you can show either pending payments or payments that have already been paid by simply ticking this checkbox. Please note that this table is limited to displaying 5 items per week, so if you have more than 5 bills or debts to pay, then it will be necessary to double-check the calendar itself to keep track of all your upcoming payments. But this does provide a convenient way to view what is upcoming for this month. And this brings us to the end of the calendar tool and its features, and so I'm going to move on to the last tool of this spreadsheet, which is the debt tracker. Before using the debt payoff tracker, there are a few key things that are important to note. Firstly, in this tracker, you set your payoff strategy to either the snowball method or the avalanche method. The strategy of the snowball method is to pay off the debts with the lowest balance first, whereas the avalanche method will prioritize debts with the highest interest rate first. The next thing to know is that you will need to set a start date for your payments, and you can find this setting in the top left. Once you have set a starting date, you can begin inputting your personal information. For each debt, there are 4 fields to fill out: the name of the debt, the current balance, the minimum payment that you want to make each month, and the annual interest rate for that debt. Once you have filled out all your debts, you will see that they will be reorganized in the table on the right, based on the debt strategy that you have chosen. As we have used the snowball method, the debts with the lowest balance will be reorganized to be at the top. In addition, the debt tracker will now begin calculating your debt payoff plan. In this tab, you are now able to see a summary on what you have left to pay, the projected payoff period, the amount of interest that you will be paying over time, and finally, the date by which you can expect to be debt-free. While this is a summary of the payments plan, the details can be found in the Payment Details tab. Let's go there now. In this tab, there is a monthly breakdown of your payments for each debt. Now, we know that there is a lot of information that is being displayed here, but it is easy to follow once you go over it. First, there is the date. This starts based on the date you have set in the previous tab. Then, you are also able to see the balance at the end of each month, the interest you will pay for that month, the projected payment for that month, the monthly rollover, and then, lastly, the actual payment. And these last 3 items, the projected payment, the rollover, and the actual payment, we would like to cover in more depth. So, starting with the projected payment, this is a combination of the minimum payment that you need to pay as well as any rollover that you have for that month. You can think of this as the minimum payment that you would need to make. And that brings us to the rollover. This is the amount you have left once you have finished paying off one of your debts. The idea here is that when a debt has been paid off, you take the payment you were making for the first debt and allocate it towards another debt. In this example, we see that we finish off our credit card debt by June 2025. This means that we now have an extra $200 to put towards another debt. Now, how do we determine which debt to allocate the extra money? This will depend on the payoff strategy that you have chosen. If you have chosen the debt snowball strategy, then any extra funds will be allocated to the next lowest debt. On the other hand, if you have chosen the debt avalanche strategy, then the funds will be allocated to the debt with the next highest interest rate. As in this example, we are using the snowball method. We can see that the rollover from our credit card is being put towards our personal loan in June, as the personal loan is the new lowest balance in this particular month. In June 2025, you can see that $161 are being rolled over, and this rollover pattern will continue and build up as more and more debts are paid off. And this should help make clear some of the reasoning behind the name Debt Snowball. Finally, the last field is the actual payments field. This is the actual amount that you pay for a debt in a particular month. This amount can be updated in 2 ways. Firstly, you can simply click the checkbox on the left of each debt table. By clicking this box, you are showing that you have made the necessary projected payment for a debt. You will see that once you have done this, the actual payment will automatically update to the same amount as the projected payment. Furthermore, the progress bar at the top will update. This ability to mark off the checkbox provides you with a quick and convenient way to indicate when you have made the necessary payment on a debt. However, there is a second method to record actual payments that provides you with more fine-grained control and customization if you need it. This alternative method involves the debt payments log. You can use this log to make actual payments that are different from the minimum projected payments. For example, we see here that, for our credit card debt, we need to make a projected payment of $200 in January 2024. Now, as mentioned previously, we can tick the box, and the actual payment will immediately update to reflect this. But what if we want to make a payment that is different to the projected payment? Then we would navigate to the payments log and record this different amount. In this case, let's say that we actually make a payment of $300 towards our credit card in January 2024. After logging this, if we go back to the Payments Details tab, we will see this logged amount reflected under the actual payment field. Furthermore, the balance will recalculate using our logged amount instead of using the projected amount. However, it is important to note here that the balance will only recalculate with the actual payment if the logged payments exceed the projected payments. We hope this makes sense. As at a minimum you would need to pay the projected amount, the balance will use this as a default value unless your actual payment is more than this minimum amount. Lastly, please note that you are still able to update your progress by ticking off the checkbox. And that brings us to the last set of features included with the debt tracker. Please note that these features are optional, but they could be helpful in you further developing and modifying your debt payoff plan. Firstly, if you go back to the Debt Input tab, you will see an option for an extra monthly amount at the top. This provides a quick way for you to add an extra fixed amount to your debt payments. And it is important to note that this extra payment will be added to every single month. The value of this feature is that it allows you to make quick changes to your debt plan and, in this way, you can model how much faster you could pay off your debts if you were able to contribute a bit extra each month. For example, if I input $100, then I will see that this reduces my payoff timeline by about 2 months. Furthermore, if I go to the Payments Details tab, I will see that this extra $100 has been added to my projected payments for each month, showing you how it would impact your payoff plan. Lastly, the other feature that I would like to mention are the debt snowflakes. These are extra payments that you can make, let's say, if you have extra money for a particular month. Now, these snowflakes work in a similar fashion to the extra monthly amount that we have just discussed. However, the difference is that the extra monthly amount adds an amount to every single month, whereas the debt snowflakes only affect 1 month at a time, giving you more control over customizing your payoff plan. As we see here, if I add $50 to February 2024, then this extra amount will be added to my projected payment for that month, impacting the balance for that month, and everything downstream as well. And this brings me to the end of this tutorial. We hope you found this helpful, and if you have any questions, please contact our team and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks again, and wishing you all the best with your finances.